cell phones. Can't live without them, right? But what if I told you these pocket-sized gadgets have a dark side? In this video, we're diving into 5 real-life stories of the most disturbing deaths caused by mobile phones, from freak accidents to chilling consequences. These tales are a haunting reminder of the hidden dangers behind our favorite devices. On the warm morning of July 29, 2014, in Bartonville, Illinois, Wendy Rybolt, a 44-year-old mental health technician, was at home with her teenage daughter, starting the day like any other. Little did they know, the morning would take a tragic turn. Wendy was a beloved member of her community, working at the Zeller Mental Health Center and actively participating in her local church, Bethel Lutheran. She had a fulfilling life surrounded by her 4 children, her parents, a brother, and extended family. But on this day, everything would change. While Wendy and her daughter went about their morning, a fire suddenly broke out in their home. The cause is unclear, but the flames spread quickly. Wendy and her daughter barely had time to process what was happening before they made a run for safety. Once outside, however, Wendy realized her phone was still inside the burning house. Now, most of us would have felt that same tug. Our phones hold so many memories, photos, and contacts. But in that moment, Wendy made a choice that would change everything. She decided to go back inside. With thick, toxic smoke filling the house and the fire rapidly intensifying, Wendy's daughter watched in helpless horror as her mother ran back into the flames. Despite the danger, Wendy rushed inside to retrieve her phone. Unfortunately, the smoke quickly overwhelmed her, and she never came back out. By the time the emergency responders, including Officer Brian Fengel of the Bartonville Police Department, arrived, it was too late. The thick smoke, filled with deadly carbon monoxide, made it impossible for anyone to safely enter the home. Firefighters struggled to reach her, but by the time they did, Wendy had succumbed to smoke inhalation. The tragedy served as a grim reminder of the dangers of house fires, not just from the flames, but from the suffocating poisonous smoke that can take a life in mere moments. After the incident, Chief Fengel shared a sobering message. No material possession is worth risking your life. Wendy's decision to go back for her phone cost her everything, and her story stands as a painful but necessary reminder to never go back into a burning building. Wendy's death left her family heartbroken. Her 2 daughters, Amber and Abby, who had escaped the fire, now had to face the overwhelming grief of losing their mother. Her other children, Allie and Nathan, were also left to process the loss, while her parents, Stephen and Cher, mourned the loss of their daughter. On August 4, 2014, Wendy's family and friends gathered to say their final goodbyes at her funeral, held at the Davis and Fulton Bartonville Chapel. Wendy was cremated, and her ashes were later placed in the Lutheran cemetery. Looking back, many wonder why Wendy made the decision to go back into the house. In moments of crisis, instincts often drive us, and when something feels irreplaceable, it's hard to resist the urge to recover it. But the reality is, no material item is worth a life. If Wendy had waited for the firefighters, she might still be here today. Her tragic death serves as a cautionary tale to think carefully in emergencies. Sometimes the best thing we can do is stay safe, trust the professionals, and get out alive. Wendy Rybolt's story isn't just about the loss of a mother. It's a powerful reminder of how quickly things can go wrong when danger strikes, and that in life or death situations, survival is all that matters. In 2010, a bizarre and tragic event unfolded in a small village in Rajan, India, that left the local community reeling and set the stage for a serious conversation about the dangers lurking in the gadgets we use every day. Enter Gopal Gujar, a 23-year-old cattle herder from Bond village in Kota. Gopal lived a simple life, sharing a humble home with his brothers. Together, they managed a small plot of land and herded cattle. Every day, Gopal would take his herd out to graze in the nearby forest, a routine that kept him busy and connected to the land. Now, Gopal wasn't the type to be obsessed with the latest gadgets. He didn't need the fanciest phone on the market. He just wanted something that worked. Enter the Nokia 1209, a tough, no-nonsense device released back in 2008. This phone was practically indestructible, perfect for someone like Gopal, who spent his days out in the fields exposed to the elements. It was basic, sure, but it did the job, keeping him in touch with his family and friends. But one day, Gopal's routine would take a tragic turn. He was out in the forest, as usual, herding cattle and doing his thing when he made a phone call. Little did he know that simple action would lead to disaster. Without warning, the phone exploded near his ear, sending shards of metal and debris into his neck, ear, and shoulder. It was a violent explosion that left Gopal fatally wounded. And the worst part? He was all alone, deep in the forest, with no one around to help. As night fell and Gopal still hadn't returned home, his family grew worried. They knew his routine like clockwork and immediately sensed something was off. So, they gathered a search party and ventured out into the night. It wasn't long before they found Gopal's lifeless body, lying beside his shattered Nokia 1209. The scene was gruesome. His body was covered in burns, and the phone's remains were scattered nearby. An investigation later confirmed what no one could have predicted. The phone had exploded while Gopal was using it, a rare and deadly event. News of his death spread like wildfire through the village and beyond. This wasn't something anyone had ever expected to hear about, especially in rural India. The police quickly determined that Gopal's death was caused by the phone's explosion, something that had never happened in India before. This wasn't a freak accident, it pointed to something bigger. The suspicion that the battery in Gopal's phone was counterfeit. And it wasn't just Gopal. Similar incidents had been reported in China and Nepal, where faulty batteries were linked to fatal explosions. It turns out that mobile phones, even ones known for their durability like the Nokia 1209, weren't immune to the risks posed by counterfeit batteries. These knockoff batteries, often made with subpar materials, could overheat, malfunction, and, as Gopal tragically discovered, explode. The story quickly made headlines across the world, drawing attention to a growing global issue. Mobile phone manufacturers, including Nokia, were forced to act. Investigations began in earnest, and steps were taken to rid the market of dangerous counterfeit batteries. While Gopal's death was a deeply tragic and rare event, it served as a wake-up call about the hidden dangers in the technology we rely on every day. Since then, phone manufacturers have ramped up efforts to educate consumers about counterfeit batteries and the importance of using genuine phone parts. It's a sad reminder that even in our modern world, a simple piece of technology can still pack a deadly punch. On June 24, 2015, in Irving, Texas, Patricia Allen, a 30-year-old mom of 5, decided to cool off with a trip to the apartment pool. It was a scorching summer day, and her kids, ranging from ages 3 to 11, were thrilled at the idea of swimming. Known for being a caring and vigilant mother, Patricia was excited to give her kids a fun, relaxing day. But what was meant to be a joyful outing quickly turned into a nightmare. The pool had a shallow end, but the deep end was murky and unclear. Patricia stayed in the shallow end, playing with her 3-year-old, while instructing her older kids to stay where she could see them. Then, in the blink of an eye, everything went wrong. Patricia saw her son, Tra, 9, vanish under the water. Panic surged through her as she saw his red shorts and face for a brief moment before he disappeared into the murky depths. She immediately dove in to rescue him, but the water was too cloudy to see. As she fought to save him, her older children, 11-year-old Anthony and 10-year-old August, also went under, possibly trying to help their brother. Patricia was torn between trying to save them and pulling her 3-year-old out of danger. At one point, her youngest fell back into the water, forcing her to rescue him again. The chaos was overwhelming. By the time witnesses arrived, the scene appeared calm, too calm. Patricia, staring blankly at the water, was initially mistaken for being unbothered. When they realized the gravity of the situation, someone finally called 911. Emergency responders arrived too late. Anthony, August, and Tra were pulled unconscious from the water, but despite all efforts to save them, they couldn't be revived. Anthony and Tra were placed on life support but tragically passed away 5 days later. The grief was unimaginable, but what followed was almost as painful. Police launched an investigation, and witnesses claimed Patricia might have been distracted, possibly on her phone, instead of watching her children. Patricia firmly denied this, stating she had been in the water the entire time, trying to save her kids. But rumors and suspicion grew. A police officer confirmed that Patricia was seen sitting by the pool's edge, staring into the deep end. Patricia's lawyer, Howard Rosenstein, defended her, hiring a private investigator to prove she was not negligent. He also uncovered that the pool had a history of safety violations, including poor visibility, which may have contributed to the tragedy. On July 10th, Patricia was arrested and charged with injury to a child, accused of contributing to her children's deaths by not paying enough attention. Her family, however, stood by her. They described her as a loving, devoted mother. The community also rallied around her, with friends and neighbors raising money to help cover her bond and support her surviving children, who had been placed in foster care. Despite the intense scrutiny, Patricia continued to defend herself, insisting she did everything she could. Her lawyer emphasized her clean record and the pool's safety issues as key factors in the tragedy. Though the legal battle continued, Patricia's fight was not just to clear her name, but to one day be reunited with her surviving children. This heartbreaking story serves as a tragic reminder of how quickly things can go wrong, and how loss often brings more questions than answers. It was a warm July afternoon in 2013 when Roger Miro, a 56-year-old resident of Willow Creek condominiums in Palatine, Illinois, had an ordinary day. Well, almost. Roger, known for his kind heart and helpful nature, was the kind of guy who'd give you directions even if you didn't ask. Despite being legally blind due to optic nerve damage, he lived independently and navigated the world like a champ, taking the bus to work like clockwork. On this particular day, Roger came home from work at around 3:30 p.m. and settled in for the usual routine. However, by late afternoon, he realized something was missing: his trusty cell phone. After a few fruitless laps around his apartment, retracing his steps like a detective, Roger came up with an idea. Could his phone have accidentally fallen into the trash? A quick mental checklist confirmed he had recently tossed out a bag of garbage, so he figured it was worth a shot. The trash room was in the basement, so he decided to go down there and retrieve it. By 6:30 p.m., Roger approached his neighbor Larry Boney, who was on the condo board, and asked for the key to the basement. Larry, distracted by a phone call he was waiting on, handed over the key without much thought or warning about the trash compactor lurking in the basement. Unbeknownst to Roger, this seemingly mundane task was about to take a tragic turn. Down in the parking garage, the trash room was like something out of a dystopian movie. A large, ominous trash compactor loomed in the corner, equipped with a photoelectric sensor that would automatically activate once the trash piled up to a certain point. No signs, no warnings, nothing to indicate this was a deadly machine waiting for a victim. Roger, determined to find his phone, noticed a ladder propped up next to the compactor. He climbed up, leaned over the compactor hopper, and began his search. Then, disaster struck. Either a bag of trash came down the chute and knocked Roger off balance, or he simply overreached, but one way or another, Roger fell into the compactor. The sensor activated, and the machine started its cycle. No safety mechanisms, no way out. The hydraulic ram inside did its grim work, and by the time Roger's wife Donna returned home at 9:30 p.m., she was frantic when she couldn't reach him. After reporting him missing to the police, they began asking neighbors questions, one of whom remembered Roger borrowing the key earlier. When the police searched the trash room, they noticed the door lock had been removed and the ladder still propped up against the compactor. Sadly, they found Roger's body inside. The Cook County medical examiner later confirmed the cause of death was multiple crushing injuries, ruling it an accident. Roger's death sent shockwaves through the community. He was known for his kindness, often helping those with learning disabilities. The tragedy raised serious concerns about the safety, or lack thereof, of industrial machines like trash compactors. Roger's widow, Donna, filed a lawsuit, arguing that the condo association and property management failed to warn residents about the danger the compactor posed, especially to someone like Roger, who was visually impaired. Her attorney, Craig Brown, made a compelling point. This tragedy could have been prevented if proper warning signs had been in place. He called it a hidden danger, one that Roger had no way of seeing, but could have been avoided with a little forethought. The lawsuit sought compensation for wrongful death and emotional distress, a reminder that sometimes the most tragic accidents are the ones that could have been prevented with just a little more care. It was Christmas Day, 2015, in sunny San Diego, California. Joshua Burwell, a 33-year-old father from Sheridan, Indiana, had planned the perfect holiday. His mission? To capture the breathtaking beauty of Sunset Cliffs on camera. Known for his love of nature and passion for photography, Joshua was eager to spend the day snapping pictures of the ocean. It was supposed to be a peaceful Christmas adventure, but as we all know, sometimes things don't go as planned. Joshua arrived at Sunset Cliffs with a friend, but right off the bat he ran into his first obstacle, finding parking. This spot is one of those places where you'd think you'd have to battle for a space, especially on a holiday, and Joshua was no stranger to the struggle. After some time, he finally found a spot, grabbed his gear, and set off to explore. But here's where things took a turn. Witnesses later said that Joshua was so engrossed in his device, either his phone or his camera, that he barely noticed where he was going. It's easy to get lost in the beauty of a view when you're trying to capture it, but Sunset Cliffs isn't just a pretty postcard. It's known for its stunning views, sure, but also for its very dangerous drop-offs. As Joshua continued walking along the cliff's edge, oblivious to the fact that he was getting dangerously close to the drop, disaster struck. One wrong step, and before anyone could react, he fell 60 feet straight onto the rocks below. It all happened so quickly. Luckily, 3 bystanders rushed to the scene, including 13-year-old Thor Weilink, who just so happened to live nearby. Thor and his crew scrambled down the cliffs with ropes and whatever they could find, desperately trying to save Joshua. They did everything they could, but despite their efforts, Joshua didn't make it. Paramedics arrived and pronounced him dead at the scene. The news of Joshua's tragic fall spread like wildfire, and his mother, Cheryl Burwell, took to Facebook to express her heartbreak. In her post, she confirmed that Joshua had been taking photos when he fell and shared how deeply she was grieving the loss of her son. Her final words to Joshua had been, "I love you," and she urged others to appreciate their loved ones while they still could. In a statement to the media, lifeguard Bill Bender offered some advice we can all take to heart. "It's like driving while using your cell phone," he said. "You don't want to walk and use your phone in a dangerous area. Stay aware." Oddly enough, the device Joshua had been using was never recovered. It remains a mystery, but what's not in question is the role that distraction played in this tragedy. Joshua's death is a stark reminder of how one moment of inattention can have deadly consequences. Sunset Cliffs may be beautiful, but it's a harsh reminder that beauty sometimes demands respect. Joshua's death on Christmas Day left a deep impact, not only on his family but also on those who witnessed the fall and tried to help.